Welcome to the first module of economic analysis. In this part of our course, we will focus on the foundational ideas that shape the way economists think, analyze, and solve problems. Our goal is to not just talk about abstract theories, but to give you a way of thinking about decisions, markets, and the allocation of scarce resources in a structured, logical manner. Economic analysis is about making sense of the world in terms of choices and trade-offs. Whether we are studying the behavior of an individual consumer deciding how to spend a limited income, or a government deciding how to allocate its budget, economics offers us tools and principles to understand the consequences of these choices. We will start with the nature and scope of economics, then move into the core principles of microeconomics, including demand, supply, and elasticity. We will explore consumer theory and production theory, and then dive into the different types of market structures. Finally, we will take a look at factor markets and welfare economics, laying a foundation for the applied macroeconomic concepts we will study in Module 2. 1. Nature and scope of economics. Economics is often called the science of scarcity. Why scarcity? Because in almost every aspect of life, resources are limited, yet our wants are virtually unlimited. This mismatch forces us to make choices, and economics is the study of how those choices are made, how they affect society, and how to improve them. Economics is broadly divided into two main branches. Microeconomics, which focuses on the behavior of individual units like consumers, firms, and specific markets. Macroeconomics, which looks at the economy as a whole, things like national income, inflation, unemployment, and economic growth. Economic analysis is about creating logical models that describe real-world behavior. These models help predict what might happen under different circumstances, such as a change in price, a shift in consumer preferences, or the introduction of a new tax. 2. Basic economic problems. No matter the economic system, capitalist, socialist, or mixed, all societies face the same fundamental questions. What to produce? With limited resources, societies must decide which goods and services to prioritize. How to produce? Choosing between different methods of production, labor-intensive versus capital-intensive, has efficiency and employment implications. For whom to produce? This is about distribution, deciding how goods and services will be allocated among people. Different societies answer these questions in different ways, but the analytical framework remains the same. 3. Microeconomic analysis, demand and supply. Demand. Demand refers to the quantity of a good or service that consumers are willing and able to purchase at various prices, during a certain period of time. The relationship between price and quantity demanded is usually inverse. As price rises, quantity demanded tends to fall, and vice versa. There are several factors that influence demand beyond price. Income of the consumer, prices of related goods, substitutes and complements, taste and preferences, expectations about future prices and income, number of buyers in the market. Supply. Supply refers to the quantity of a good or service that producers are willing and able to sell at various prices over a given period. Generally, there is a direct relationship between price and quantity supplied. Higher prices encourage more production. Factors affecting supply include cost of production, technology, prices of related goods in production, government policies, taxes, subsidies, regulations, expectations about future prices, number of sellers, market equilibrium. When demand and supply interact, they determine a market equilibrium, the price and quantity where the amount buyers want equals the amount sellers provide. Any shift in demand or supply can change this equilibrium, affecting both prices and quantities in the market. 4. Elasticity. Elasticity measures how sensitive one variable is to changes in another. In economics, the most common is price elasticity of demand, how much the quantity demanded changes when the price changes. Elasticity matters because it affects revenue. For instance, if demand is highly elastic, a small price increase can lead to a large drop in quantity demanded, reducing total revenue. But if demand is inelastic, raising the price might increase revenue, as buyers won't significantly cut back their purchases. We also have income elasticity of demand, which measures how demand changes with income, and cross-elasticity of demand, which measures how the demand for one good responds to changes in the price of another. On the supply side, price elasticity of supply tells us how quickly and effectively producers can respond to price changes. 5. Consumer theory and utility analysis. The concept of utility. Utility is the satisfaction or pleasure a consumer gets from consuming a good or service. Economists use the concept of utility to explain how consumers make decisions given their limited income. There are two main approaches to utility. Cardinal utility assumes utility can be measured in numbers, like units of satisfaction. Ordinal utility assumes we can only rank preferences, not measure them in absolute terms. The law of diminishing marginal utility. As a consumer consumes more of a good, the additional satisfaction, marginal utility, from each extra unit tends to decrease. This principle helps explain why demand curves slope downward. People are willing to buy more only if the price decreases to match the lower marginal utility. The budget constraint. A budget constraint represents all the combinations of goods a consumer can afford given their income and prices of goods. Consumers aim to maximize utility within this constraint, choosing the mix of goods that gives the highest satisfaction for their spending power. 6. Production theory and cost. Production theory examines how firms transform inputs into outputs, and how efficiently they do so. The production function. A production function describes the maximum output that can be produced with a given set of inputs and technology. The law of diminishing returns. When one input is increased while others are fixed, the extra output from each additional unit of that input will eventually decline. This principle is critical for understanding why firms face increasing marginal cost at higher levels of production. Cost of production. Costs are classified as fixed costs, which don't change with output. Variable costs, which vary directly with output. Total cost, the sum of fixed and variable costs. Average and marginal costs, which are important for pricing and production decisions. 7. Market structures. Market structure refers to the organization and characteristics of a market that influence competition and pricing. Perfect competition. In this structure, many small firms sell identical products, and no single firm can influence the market price. Entry and exit are easy, and information is freely available. Monopoly. A monopoly is a market with only one seller, which has significant control over price due to the lack of close substitutes. Monopolies can arise from control over resources, patents, or government regulation. Monopolistic competition. Here, many firms sell similar but not identical products. Product differentiation allows firms some control over prices, but competition remains significant. Oligopoly. An oligopoly is dominated by a small number of large firms, which may compete or collude. Strategic behavior, such as price leadership or cartels, is common. 8. Factor markets and income distribution. Factor markets are where the services of the factors of production, land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship are bought and sold. Wages, rents, interest, and profits are the returns to these factors. Income distribution refers to how the total income of an economy is shared among individuals and groups. Economic analysis looks at both efficiency and fairness in this distribution, balancing incentives for productivity with the goal of reducing inequality. 9. Introduction to welfare economics. Welfare economics is about evaluating economic outcomes in terms of societal well-being. It considers how resources can be allocated to maximize social welfare, often focusing on efficiency and equity. Concepts like Pareto efficiency describe situations where no one can be made better off without making someone else worse off. Closing of Module 1. We have now laid the groundwork for understanding economic analysis at the micro level, the choices of individuals and firms, the functioning of markets, and the role of competition and market structures. In Module 2, we will take these ideas to a broader level, examining the macroeconomic environment, policies, and real-world applications of economic analysis.